Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another one of Tyler's Guides. Today, we're going to be talking about the attention span and how it's shrinking and how to reclaim it. What's the longest time that you can focus on one thing? And I mean, actually focus on something, not like having 100 other different thoughts pop up or using your phone every 5 seconds. If I had to guess, I'd say not very long. Are you still with me now? According to the American Psychological Association, the average human has an attention span of about 47 seconds. And you might be thinking, okay, that's almost a minute, right? But when you find out that in 2004, our attention span was about 2.5 minutes, you realize our attention span has decreased by over half in 20 years, which is pretty incredible. If you're still with me this far, I appreciate you. Congrats on that good attention span. I know personally I started noticing my struggles with focus and attention when I was reading a book and I just noticed I made it down like 2 pages and I'm like, what did I just read? I couldn't even remember. So I had to reread it again. I still didn't remember it. And the whole time I'm trying to read, my thoughts are all over the place. I just couldn't relax. I couldn't focus on the book. And it was really frustrating. At first, I thought maybe it's my ADHD, but I didn't have this problem my whole life. So it had become like a recent thing. So I started to wonder, like, okay, what's going on? I did some research, watched some videos, and the conclusion that I came to was that I was overindulging in instant gratification things, and simultaneously, I was not dealing with my stress properly, and they kind of just play into each other, right? So I had my bad habits, and then I had my stress. Instead of dealing with the stress healthily, I would just put the bad habits on top of it and kind of bury it. Then, as I'm trying to read the book, I got all the unprocessed things that I didn't deal with just popping back up into my head. So yeah, I was pretty much just stuck ruminating. There wasn't an instant fix to those problems, and I also never gave myself time to kind of get over certain things or just relax, right? So luckily, I do have a solution. I was able to make a lot of progress on my attention span personally, and I'm excited to be able to share that information with you all today. But to start with, I'd like to talk about what is it that's disturbing our attention. I think that understanding things makes it so much easier to overcome challenges. When you're thinking about these things and you understand what's happening, you might be in the moment. You're like, oh yeah, I remember, like blah 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 blah, and it helps you get through it. So here's the blah blah blah. How much time do you give yourself to think every day? And I mean, just think. Like, if you're in the car, are you listening to music or are you thinking? Are you processing your thoughts? Most people can't stand the idea of being alone with their thoughts, so instead of just allowing them to be there, they drown it out with TikTok dances and memes. And I'm not even gonna act like I'm better than anybody. The other day, every now and then I do go on Reels or whatever. If I'm posting on there, I might be like, all right, let me look for like 5 minutes, right? I saw this video of an actual possum driving a tractor while his owner was singing "Possum Take the Wheel," like Jesus Take the Wheel, and I watched it like 5 times. I loved it. I can't believe that's like the level of stimulation we're at right now with videos. I see why everybody's so hooked. But while that is funny, according to backlinko.com, globally the average time spent on TikTok among Android users per day was 95 minutes during 2022, which is more than any other social network at all. And this statistic is insane. They say what it takes like 10,000 hours to become a master. If you put 95 minutes a day of into a skill, you these people would be professional whatever they want to be, right? So almost every TikTok is under 60 seconds, and that's just absolutely destroying our ability to concentrate. Our brains are not meant to handle that kind of constant change in context and overstimulation. If you think about it, right, like if you had a homework assignment you had to do, let's say it takes 30 minutes, your brain was just cooked on maybe like 30. I mean, we'll be honest, they're all under 60 seconds, but usually these videos are around like 10 to 30 seconds, right? So your brain just got cooked getting all that dopamine, the stimulation, everything it needed, and now you got to sit down and pay attention for 30 minutes on a boring homework assignment. Good luck with that. So while it can be super entertaining to watch these things, as I just said, it's not good for us. Back to the question again of how much time do you give yourself to think per day? This question is extremely important because our brains do need time to process things like learning, emotions, anything that happened to us. It needs time. Most people do not give their brains or themselves this freedom, and they end up with scattered thoughts all over the place. According to Murray 2021, our brains are designed for sprints, not marathons. They need time to rest, reset, and consolidate knowledge. Without this, our brains cannot function optimally. So these scattered thoughts, random thoughts we're having are most likely unprocessed things that we've never allowed our brain time to process, whether we were filling it with more work, short form content, video games. None of it's good for our brains. We want to process that stuff. This leads us to the science behind chilling. You definitely need to chill out, bro. Our brains need time to relax and de stress. We're just not biologically designed to constantly be in go, 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 like constantly doing something. The scientific reason behind that is because we have two nervous systems. One is the central nervous system, and the second is the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system, it controls things that are unconscious, like breathing, right? We also, within this peripheral nervous system, we have another part known as the autonomic nervous system, and this is again broken into two divisions. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. And that's the end of the divisions and the science talk, I promise. But when we are in stress mode, we're engaging our sympathetic nervous system. So this is responsible for our fight, flight, or freeze responses. So if we're in this mode for too long, where our body is constantly like dedicating resources to being ready to deal with a threat, but we don't actually have a threat to deal with, we're just constantly stressing ourselves out with working, whatever we're doing, and we're not giving ourselves time to relax. We stay in this system for too long, we end up becoming fatigued, and as we all know, when we're fatigued, we can't pay attention at all. So we need to avoid staying in this system for too long by engaging the parasympathetic system, which is responsible for rest and digest, and we do this by giving our minds time to rest. So now that we know the two culprits that are resulting in our messed up attention spans with the short form instant gratification and things like that, and then we're also not giving our brains time to just relax and process. As a result, we're struggling staying focused, we're lacking motivation, and our ability to be present is just not there. These things can lead to a whole mess of problems affecting nearly every part of our life, which work, relationships, and I mean, how are you supposed to work if you can't pay attention? And how are you supposed to be in a relationship if you're not paying attention? So, on top of that, constantly being overstimulated and not relaxing is going to give us negative physiological and psychological effects, which is just going to add another layer on top of your relationship and work problems, which we do not want. Don't worry though, there is hope. I improved my attention span, and today I'm going to give you the protocols of things that I use to fix my attention span. And to start with, we have mindfulness. So now that we have an understanding, I gave you the knowledge of what's going on with our attention. We want to be aware when we're shifting into our old patterns of distraction and not allowing ourselves time to relax. It's going to be hard at first. It's always hard to start being mindful when you have these thought patterns, behaviors already like ingrained in your system. But a couple things we can start doing would be setting alarms. So to start, for me being mindful, I would set an alarm for about every 3 hours or so, which would remind me to take deep breaths and to be mindful. After you do it, it helps you stay, in the loop of doing it. Another good thing is journaling. Always talk about journaling. Love it. Journal about the habits you have that might decrease your attention span or anything related to this, whatever you feel like. Meditation is great as well. This gives your brain the space that it needs, free of stimulation. I'd suggest starting with 5 minutes. That's going to probably be hard at first. And then every week you can take it up about a minute, right? Until around like 15 or 20 minutes, I think is a pretty solid time. And the last thing I would suggest is writing notes. So I got some notes here. Pin them on your wall, put them on your mirrors, write it on your hand, or even put it on your screensaver. Wherever you can see it, the more that your brain's getting reminded to be mindful, the more just automatic and habitual it's going to become. Moving on now to technological hygiene. I have a quote here from Tim Wu. You're always being pulled away, and it's getting worse every day. We gotta rein in our technological usage. The companies that own these things have the top psychological professionals in the world working on these things. They're trying to capture your attention and keep you hooked on this app all day long because they profit off of it. Our attention is one of the most precious resources that we have, and every company is seeking to take that attention from us and profit off it. So it is our responsibility to limit our usage of these things and utilize our attention for what best serves us. So here's my tips on how to do that. We want to start with using screen time. I don't know about Android. I haven't used Android in like 10 years, but I know on iPhone we have the screen time app. So you just want to start tracking your screen time daily, weekly, and you want to set a realistic goal of you want to stay under X amount of hours per week or per day, whichever works for you. I mean, if you're currently spending like 8 hours a day on your phone, don't set it to two because that's just not realistic. Be realistic. Try cutting off an hour per week or 30 minutes per week, and incremental baby steps, you'll get there. And then for the start and the end of the day, we don't want to use our phone for the first hour of waking and the last hour before sleeping. Helps with both of those areas. Just avoid it for the first hour and last hour. And we want to use D&D. If you're working or if you're doing anything that requires you to stay focused, pay attention, just put your phone on D&D. They'll understand. If not, that's their problem, right? Moving on to lifestyle adjustments. Our attentions are defined by more than just our use of the technology. The things outside of it affect it as well. So if we aren't sleeping or if we aren't eating properly, our attention will be lowered. If we're always too busy worrying about things, our attention will be lowered even more, and it just keeps going. So it's important we want to start making certain lifestyle adjustments that are more suitable for a good attention span. So here's a few suggestions that I have. You want to start with your sleep hygiene. So creating a sleep routine is great. Personally, mine is I have lights out an hour before bedtime, which is 11:30. Same bedtime every day. You also want to wake up at the same time every day. Um, Continuing with my sleep hygiene, I like to journal, and then I'll also read or practice a language before bed. It helps me get tired, helps me sleep. And then I also like to breathe deeply. Again, gets me relaxed, comfortable, ready to sleep. You want to stay away from bright lights and technology before bed as much as you can. The next thing is diet, and I'm not a dietitian or a doctor, so this isn't legitimate professional advice, but I do have diabetes and I bodybuild, so I know a fair amount. I research these kind of things because it's really important to me. Basically, you want to try and eat less carbs, especially in the early parts of the day. It really slows you down, slows down your thinking, and you want to avoid added sugars at all costs. I would also suggest looking into intermittent fasting. But out of all that, I would definitely say try and eat less carbs in the morning and just see the difference it makes on your attention throughout the day. Next is stress management, whether it's walks, meditation, or even an episode of your favorite show. Do something that helps you de-stress in a healthy way, so not going on TikTok, right? And lastly, we want to do exercise. It helps with everything above. It helps you sleep. It makes you want to be healthier because you're starting to get into that lifestyle. And it also helps relieve stress in a physical way. It's great. I cannot recommend exercise enough. And the final thing is your content awareness. So this all goes back to me roasting TikTok, right? We want our brains to have healthy content that doesn't just destroy our ability to concentrate. And we can even have entertaining things too, right? But the goal is to have it be longer so that way we're at least focusing for 20 to 30 minutes instead of just 60 seconds. So we want to start with consuming long form content, podcasts, lectures, guides, pretty much anything 30 minutes or more is great. You just need to be able to focus, and that's what's important. We also want to avoid short form content, self explanatory, and reading books. If you're looking to improve your focus, this is definitely the best form of content to consume. Also considering the fact that you're able to focus. If you're like I was in the beginning, you might not be able to at first, but as you start to do the things I mentioned above, get into reading. I can't recommend it enough. It's great. So while our attention spans might seem like they're irreversibly screwed up, hopefully after getting the knowledge I just gave you and the protocols for fixing it, you're feeling a lot more confident on your attention. Is there a certain thing that you've been needing to pay attention that you haven't? Or is there certain things you're considering about changing after hearing this information? If you are, make sure you let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate y'all coming and stopping by for the information. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. Check out the blog if you enjoy reading. Talking about reading for the content consumption. Perfect place to start. tylersguide.us. Thanks again, everybody. Take care.